Do you believe that our pets go to heaven? If not, perhaps you should, as these two NDEs today demonstrate that yes, our pets do indeed go to heaven. The experience began within a white space with a telepathic voice whose gender I could not determine. The voice said, "Do you want to go forward, or do you want to go back?" I instinctively knew what the voice was asking, and excitedly, I chose forward. It was then that I noticed the dog that stood beside me and felt others close behind. It puzzled me, but not entirely. Suddenly, before me was an arch-shaped gate with smaller arches and gates on either side. All were white, and 3 steps curved up on either side of the gates. Again, I heard the voice. "Do you want to go forward, or do you want to go back?" This time, the dog and I ran toward the left stairs and up to the first gate. I knew again what the voice was asking, and again I wanted to go on. At the smaller first gate, 2 dogs awaited the dog with me. The gate was iridescent, and I could not see through it. Interestingly, I tried to walk through with the dog, and the other dogs telepathically told me that I needed to go through the larger gate, and that I could see my new friend later if I wanted. Yes, I now find this quite amusing. I then went to the larger main gate. It was moving, iridescent, and colorful. I walked through into blackness. Somewhere in my thoughts, I called it the hallway, and as I traveled further down the hallway, something started to happen. I began to float, and an overwhelming sense of love swarmed my being. I still cannot describe what this felt like. There is no earthly comparison, and I say that as a devoted and loving wife and mother. I started to feel so excited that I began to spin while still floating and moving. Then I did something interesting. I tried to gasp for breath, as if the awareness of my physical body was still trying to pull me back. I heard the voice once more, and this time it said, "There is no need to breathe air. There is only love." I still stubbornly tried to catch my breath, but now I noticed that I had no feet, no body, but I still felt like me. I looked and saw that at the end of the black hallway was a light. Moving closer to the light, I saw someone waiting for me. I could not tell if this was a man or a woman, but I knew that he or she was a guide or someone important to my life and had always been. I walked with the being into the light as others were streaming in behind me. There were individuals in lines, and I could mentally talk to them all at once, and they to me. I knew they were moving on to the light. This felt like a way station. The being took me over to sit. I still don't know how. He or she said to me without words, "You have to go back." I responded defiantly, "No, I'm staying home." The being again made the same statement, and I again refused, until he or she just imparted something in me. The knowledge that I did indeed have more to do and needed to return. I was to have children, and I needed to know about the availability of this great, unspeakable love, which I referred to as God. I traveled with others who were also going back. The handful of us left the light and walked up a small grassy hill. There was a lake there and a sunset that never completely set. I looked at the sunset and slammed into my body. My whole chest and head flew up to a sitting position, and as I gasped for air, I noticed that my entire face was covered in tears. I could not stop crying. I wanted nothing more than to go back home, but I was back in my bed where I needed to be. Days later, I went to work, and a friend walked in who was quite sad. I asked what was wrong, and she said that a couple of days ago, she had hit a dog with her car, and the dog died. I stopped her and described the dog and my experience. She was in shock. The dog that was with me was the exact description of the dog she hit and killed on the same night. Today, I have 2 beautiful boys. What I didn't mention was that at the time of my NDE, I was told by many doctors that I would never have children. I have had 5 miscarriages, in vitro fertilization, and various other treatments, all of which were failures. During this specific time in my life, I had already had 3 miscarriages, and later, I went on to have 2 more. I did eventually have 2 beautiful boys without any medical intervention. My oldest told me that he was sent from a world with colors in the sky, and I needed to have him because he is a healer. He said this at 2 years old and followed his statement with, "Mommy and Daddy, there are doctors and there are healers, but not all doctors are healers." That does it for the first experience. Moving on to the second experience. Before my body put itself into a coma following extremely violent status epilepticus, detected late when I was already experiencing cerebral hypoxia, blue skin, I had been hospitalized for a week for a procedure called SEEG. This procedure involves inserting electrodes to perform an intracranial EEG to determine the location of the epileptic foci. The final step of this SEEG is for the neurologist to send electrical discharges via a machine via these intracranial electrodes to observe the brain's reactions. Following this, that same evening, I suffered from this state of illness with countless seizures. I was transferred to intensive care in a coma. This coma lasted 2 days. This is what I experienced, even if words are not enough to explain it. So, basically, because the experience I had is indescribable, I was, in reality, in a coma, unconscious, but what I experienced was quite different. I crossed a small wooden bridge that went over a gently flowing river, and I arrived at a path with an embankment and tall, magnificent trees. The earth itself was magnificent, and there was an extraordinarily beautiful, but not dazzling light coming through the trees. One of my deceased dogs was walking beside me, peacefully. All the colors were splendid. It was so magnificent that it's indescribable. I felt a total serenity that you can't feel on Earth. I was outside of time. Time didn't exist. I knew I was me and that the situation was special, but I didn't feel any surprise or questioning. It was simply normal. I was part of a whole, in a harmony that was once again indescribable. It could have lasted the length of a walk, or I don't know what eternity was, because there was no time, just the present moment. It was so magnificent. The words I'm using aren't the right ones. You can't understand it if you haven't experienced it. There are no words beautiful and powerful enough to describe this journey. The little wooden bridge and the water were so magical, as were the path and the earth of the embankment, as well as the trees and the light. My dog, although deceased, who was walking beside me, didn't question me. We just walked peacefully together, in complete inner peace. I wasn't aware that I was actually in the hospital and in a coma. I was fully in the present moment, with no past or future coming to mind, just this landscape of which I was a part, like a greater whole. I was so serene, I had become serenity. It was as if it had invaded my entire universe and guided every beat of my heart. It was so magnificent, but it was like that, as if it were self-evident, and I was too busy living and being alive. It was as I was looking at this extraordinary land that I began to hear all the beeping of the machines around me, and to feel the pain of the tubes bothering me, and to see the bright, aggressive lights of the intensive care unit. My hands were tied. Apparently, I was very agitated in my coma. I gradually realized that I was in the hospital. Shortly after, my loved ones told me about that horrible moment of the exotera coma. Yet, all I could think about was that landscape, light, and serenity. I had so much happiness, although the word happiness isn't a strong enough word for what I felt. But I've always been surrounded by family and friends who are very rational and resistant to such inexplicable things, and I quickly understood that they didn't believe me and that I shouldn't talk about it. Even I came to doubt it. I never doubted that I'd experienced an NDE, but I told myself that maybe it didn't mean anything after all, even if that memory would remain extraordinary for the rest of my life. However, although I have this doubt, I doubt it. That is to say, I tell myself now, much more than before, that anything is possible, and that I was probably wrong to doubt it. I no longer see the end of life as nothingness. I think there's probably something beyond it, an afterlife. I wouldn't say I believe in God, but more in the universe or something like that. However, I can't be sure. I continue to doubt. That does it for today's video. As always, let me know what you all thought in the comment section below. Until the next video, be blessed.